Righto. Here we are, the modern Goth Tarot. This is a deck I wouldn't have actually known about if Lane Smith hadn't sent me a picture of the death card and said, I think you're going to like this. And they were right. I do. So it's quite cool. It's a very sexy deck in that, like, if I were Pan, I would make it with everybody in this deck. Sadly, I'm not, because I would give anything to not be attracted to other men, but here we are. Anyway, very, very beautiful people, beautiful gothy people in this deck. Quite love it. It's a pip deck, and not everyone loves that. I am a fan of pip decks, as you know. And they're not kind of lame, like, recycle, like it's like a copy and paste job. Like, they're individual images. So, you know, again, then the deck's got a very neutral vibe, which I dig, right? So let's look at the back. Use the intuitive power of tarot to discover a world beyond the shadows through the darkened eyes of life's most compelling modern goth characters. This alternative deck will connect you to your path and lead you to wisdom. This is not a publisher that I'm familiar with. Quite a lovely box, though. They did a nice job. And the only sort of negative thing I have to say about the production quality is that the cardstock stinks. It's that same thing that Hay House is using, which... durable, I guess, but who cares if it's durable if you can't shuffle it? So, problem with the cardstock. Little white book, very, very much a little white book. What you're here to see, I know, are the cards. So let us go to the money shot, as it were, since I'm being so kinky today. Yeah, that's me, kinky. Here we go. So that's the back, which is quite cool. Love that kind of deco vibes. Very into that. And let me dry my hands so I don't get the cards. I thought for a second there was some shine. There isn't. It's just my mind playing tricks on me. So, what I like about this deck is that it's quite neutral in terms of the card design, right? The cards don't necessarily lead you in any particular emotional direction, which I appreciate. And they're very simple, very modern. This actually does not look like Lane. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't know if I would... I don't like telling people they look like people, but this because Lane told me about this deck when I saw this card, I said, "Oh, that looks like them." But whatever. It kind of Lane. If you watch this sort of reminded me of you. High Priestess. So you can see this is like just a very simple, not ornate, not like overly decorated vibe to these cards, which I quite appreciate as a reader, particularly when I'm working with new clients or folks who are a little bit nervous. The Empress. This Emperor is very hot, I have to say. Hierophant. I love the, like, sleigh Hierophant. Like, that pose is it. Lovers. Chariot. Justice. I tend to order Justice at 8 and Strength at 11 just from habit because of Marseille, but it doesn't matter. The majors aren't numbered. So you can title them however you want to. The Hermit, that's quite a beautiful Hermit too. I love the candelabras. So, like, I have this fantasy, you know, like, I imagine myself as this sort of, like, combination of Mina and Jonathan Harker in my life. Like, I'm sort of both of those characters, and I just constantly imagine myself sort of running through the hallways of castles, you know, in a candelabra. So this card is all for me. Wheel of Fortune, Strength, the Hanged Man. There's the Death card that they were certain I would like and do. I'm just going to crawl into that coffin with him and just nibble on each other for a little while. Or a long time. Temperance. I really like this Temperance card. There's like an action. There's an active Temperance, which you don't usually see. This Devil, I like. He's hot. It does give a little LaVey, Anton LaVey, who I'm not a fan of, but the Tower, I really like this Tower. The Star, this is a really sexy Star card. I just love, like, glasses and tattoos, and, like, if fuck yeah, you know what I mean? Like, the people in this deck are sort of universally good looking. The moon, I think, is the really lovely moon. The sun, I love the sun here. You know, in early vampire lore, they were not affected by the sun. They just didn't go out in it. So that's the evolution of myth. Judgment and the world. The Pip cards will move through pretty quickly because they're very pippy. Pippi Longstockings is coming into your wife. So you can see they are not just cut and paste. They have character. And then the courts are quite nice. Page. Knight. Queen. King. And this is a very queer deck, even though you're not seeing a lot of, like, people will say, like, oh, how do you know someone's queer in a deck unless they're, like, fucking somebody? You know what I mean? Like, that's, like, so many people, especially, like, cishet people will be like, well, how do you know, how can you tell someone's queer in a deck? You can tell. This deck shows you how. Queer people aren't just who they fuck. So here we're in the Suit of Cups. There's my little rant about that. There are little hints and kisses towards a meaning in the minors, but not. It is very pippish. But you'll see little nods here and there to maybe more Waite-Smithy kind of stuff. But it's very subtle. When I first looked through this, I was a little disappointed by the pips, I have to say. I'm not feeling that way now that I'm looking through them again, though. And so it just might have been that I was in a bad mood, which is pretty common lately. Love this card. Cover of the box. Really good choice. King of Cups. Also, can we talk about how the fact that this is not just a deck of white goths? So again, another thing people say is like, oh, it's a white thing. It's not. You know what I mean? Like, let's bring everybody to the table. Let's make space for everybody. I will shuffle and pull a spread for you, and depending on how long this goes, maybe do like a very quick sample reading. Swords, obvi. I also have to say that I like that this isn't like, it's not, everything's like black and white, you know, there's color, you know, and that's more interesting to me than sort of stereotype goth shit. I was never a goth. I wasn't, brave enough, really, and I was sort of more of like a Lilith Fair teen. But it was like all the goth boys I had total thirst for. Really all the boys, you know. Jock boys, goth boys, nerd boy, you know, I just was like, someone want me. Pentacles. So I know that the pip thing will make some people unhappy, and, you know, that's life. But I was delighted, actually, to discover that it was a pip deck, because a mass-market pip deck is a rare thing. Not quite as much as it used to be. Problem is that a lot of the mass-market pip decks out there are very lazy, and they are very copy and paste, and very kind of like, it's the same thing over and over again, and this isn't that, which is why I'm showing it to you. He's quite hot, too. Right, let us shuffle. It does riffle if you've got dexterity. I think the thing that I keep coming back to is, as we age, that's not, you know, and if you always had trouble with dex, and you can see how clumsy a shuffle it is. So it's just too thick. You know what I mean? And for me, when a deck is in order, I need to riffle shuffle it a while because overhand doesn't mix things up as much. And this might actually be slightly thicker than the Llewellyn, than the Hay House decks cardstock. Sadly. And it is going to bend in this way. You have to bend it back. It's just shitty cardstock. You know what I mean? It's just not appropriate for a tarot deck. Maybe an oracle. The thing that I learn about many, many publishing companies, not all of them, is it's like what's cheap, what's easy, what's right for us as a publisher, not what's right for the consumer. Incidentally, that's one reason why my first 2 books were not even submitted. Well, I did submit Your Tarot Toolkit to Llewellyn on a recommendation. They rejected it before they even read the pitch. That's how Llewellyn works, because when it comes to tarot, Llewellyn has one person who makes all the decisions, and if it's not to that person's taste, Llewellyn doesn't touch it. They have the right to do that. I don't think it's particularly good for the industry, but... And I don't care that they rejected it. Like, I'm happy with what I did with that project. I do wish they had said, hey, you know, we're actually releasing a book with this same fucking title next year. But whatever. I don't even think they looked that close at the submission, to be honest with you, so they probably didn't even notice what I called the book. Anyway, this is not a rant video about why Llewellyn drives me nuts, because it's really Llewellyn's tarot division that drives me nuts. I have some other problems with Llewellyn, but this isn't a Llewellyn deck. So. And actually, I don't mind Llewellyn's cardstock, believe it or not. I just never happy, and I always have something to complain about, as many commenters have pointed out over the years. All right, let us pull a spread. Ah, there's my Hermit. And the Moon. And the Page of Pentacles. The color story is quite nice. Now, in terms of using this, will I use this? I don't see any reason why I wouldn't. It's a little young for me in terms of vibe, right? I am not cool. I am not young anymore. And even when I was young, I was... Well, when I was young, I was less cool, which is saying something. But it is a little like it's the vibe. Like it feels like for me as a reader to sort of pull out something kind of young and cool just feels like a little like, okay, old man, like you know, go back to the 18th century. But it really looks pretty in a spread. And so we have the Hermit and the Moon, and that kind of suggests that you're on a spiritual journey towards something, but you don't fully understand what it is yet. But that's okay, because the Page of Pentacles says, you're curious enough about this, and this is putting you in an interesting position to kind of evaluate what's really important to you spiritually. Here I'm reading Cups. The Seven of Cups is spiritual, because we started with the Hermit, and we've got a lot of majors in this reading, and that's mostly because I didn't shuffle it all that well, but there are no accidents in our reading, right? The star, and so when I read, I look at the top, or this combo here, right? But then so I did that top row. This row here, the star is indicating that you're not quite sure where you're going, but you're going. You're on the right path. And part of that is kind of leaving behind a certain amount of indecision, a certain amount of what's the word I'm reaching for? Like, I'm reading the Temperance in this case is sort of like the imagined path, the safe path, and where you're headed is maybe less safe, but cooler. And then in the bottom row, the High Priestess and the Eight of Coins and the Ten of Wands. Ten of Wands as the last card is always significant, but the High Priestess is like... Oh, this column is really interesting. We're going to talk about that in a second. The High Priestess is sort of like, you may not know where you're going, but deep down, you've always been on this path. you, whoever is watching this, and the work that you're doing in particular is taking you there, and you're doing it with so much energy that it's going to carry you through. The struggle is the unknown, right? Like trusting that you're going where you're supposed to be going, and that's what this column suggests: the moon, the star, and the high priestess. But the curiosity that you bring to this work and the willingness to go for the ride and to not know is also quite good. You know what I mean? So that's going to keep you going. So even though you don't quite know what you're working toward, you're going someplace where you're supposed to be, and it's going to be much more aligned to your core values and to you kind of transforming yourself into the potent whatever it is that you want to be. So that's just a super quick reading using these cards. And if you're curious how I got there, really just quick glances, but just using, kind of my own foundational stuff. But, you can do a 9-card spread in 3 minutes if you want to. You could do a grand tableau that quickly, too, with Lenormand. You don't have to, not everything has to be a deep dive. It can be just simple, quick, get in there, get out, wham, bam, thank you, Ben situation. So, anyway, Modern Goth Tarot, really like it, really think it's cool, hate the card stock, but other than that, quite nice. Highly recommended. So, take care, be good, and we will talk soon. Bye.